Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Fireside Chat about the Information is Beautiful Awards and the return of the awards this year. My name is Amanda McCulloch, and I am the current Executive Director for the Data Visualization Society, and I'll be moderating today's Fireside Chat that includes a mix of different award winners, past award winners, and team members who've been supporting this year's return of the IIB Awards. Hi, everyone. Excited to have you on board this morning. I know we're all racing up to the end of the year, so I appreciate that we managed to actually find a time that 6 different people could hop on and be part of this conversation. And I'd love to do a quick round robin of introductions so that folks who are joining us know who is here with us today. We'll go around our little Brady Bunch squares. So Evelina, let me hand it over to you.
Hi everyone, and thanks Amanda. So I'm Evelina. I run a small data storytelling studio in Paris, France, and I was lucky to have worked on one of the projects that won gold at the IIB Awards this year in the unusual category. It was a project with data for change for an NGO called the Social Justice Center. I think we'll come back to it later.
Hi, I'm Simran. I'm the Early Career Director on the board of DVS. In my day job, I'm a visual journalist at Axios, and I was involved with the program management of the awards, serving as the board member, helping out with getting the showcase up and running and all the little different back-end things going on.
Down to you, Shirley.
Hi, my name is Shirley. I am a software engineer turned data visualization designer, creator person, and I'm currently in New York for grad school. And I've been really, really fortunate to have won the IIB Awards in the past, have been judging for a few years, and was extremely and won a few this year also that I'm very grateful for.
Thank you. So I'm Francis Gagnon. I am the founder of Voila, an information design firm based in Montreal, Canada, and focused on sustainable development. And we won a gold award in the business analytics category this year.
Good morning. I'm Amy Cecil. I'm in Chicago, Illinois. I am the design director of data visualization at Morning Consult at the moment. I'm also a co-founder of the Data Visualization Society. I did not win anything this year at the Information is Beautiful Awards, but I have 3 previous wins. And I was a judge this year, which was a new fun role for me, and I got to present an award. So on the other side of things.
Fantastic. Thanks, everyone, so much for joining us today and sharing some different perspectives on the awards. We wanted to bring this group together to talk a little bit about the Information is Beautiful Awards, what they mean to us as a data visualization industry and community, and to reflect on this year's awards. I know there's been lots of chatter inside of our broader community around everything from being excited and celebrating some of the amazing winners to pointing out amazing works on the long list. And we'll talk about what that means that maybe didn't make it onto the shortlist or on the podium, but are still just as deserving of your time and attention. And to talk a little bit about kind of how we're thinking about this as a community program going forward. I think an important part for us as DVS is thinking about the ways in which the IIB Awards aren't just about presenting trophies, but are really about celebrating data visualization as a whole. So if you're not familiar with the awards, if you're just chiming in and joining us for the conversation today, the Information is Beautiful Awards celebrate data visualization works and information design from across different industries, developed in different tools and tech stacks. And you can go to the IIB website and browse the showcase and see it is endless numbers of different works that have been featured. The number of works added to the showcase this year, Simran, keep me honest on this, was more than 1,000 new works that were created over the course of the last 3 years, which is amazing when you think about being able to go to one place and go ahead and be able to browse all that information. Is that number right, Simran? Over 1,000 works that were added?
It is indeed. Yeah.
So this year we celebrated works in the past 3 years since the IIB Awards ran from 2012 to 2019. We now, in the future years, will be celebrating only 1 year of work, which we hope will be just as voluminous and exciting, but maybe a little bit easier for the judges to sift through. So we wanted to open up and chat today about some of the ways in which we were inspired by the works that we saw this year. I think it's great to start out from a celebratory space in terms of things that we were really excited about. And I wonder maybe if I can hand it off. Amy is our longtime IIB Award winner and participant and DVS co-founder. What work did you discover through the IIB Awards this year that you found to be really exciting, interesting, cool to look at?
So I will say I'm partial to the unusual category. Like that is where 2 of my previous wins come from. So I really liked A Song of Crowns and Tears. There's a video. It's a video of a sonification, and it's very just sort of hand done, but there's an audio and a visual component. It's something I had not seen before looking through the awards, and I think that that's always interesting for me too, is seeing new works that I haven't seen on Twitter, that haven't come across my radar. This is really a place that, you know, I can see a broader diversity of things because they're all in this showcase. So this was really sort of caught my attention as something that was looking at COVID data, which we had all seen, but in a really interesting format. There's even a little bit of fun in it. It plays a few bars of A Christmas Carol around Christmas time to signify that point in time. So this was one that stuck with me.
Let's see if it plays very well. And if it's a total fail on playing over StreamYard, we'll go ahead and give it a pause. But here's a Song of Crowns and Tears. There we go. And as we kind of move forward through those, I think you'd see that those kind of speed up, and the punch card represents different pieces of information. But as you can see, as we start to dive into it, it's definitely one of those visualizations or information experiences that you consume slowly, which is different from, I think, how we often associate with how we assess data visualization. Simran, do you want to pick up next, and then we'll hand it over to some of our winners from this year? What was something you discovered this year that you were really excited about?
I remember the project Rising Sea Levels by Gabby Merritt and Kit Kat Studio. That piece really resonated with me. The project shows how the global average sea level has risen from 2006 to 2020 by visually encoding this change with beads and earrings. And there's also an accompanying poster showing who this change impacts the most. And so as a data journalist, I mostly come across other visualizations in news. So for me, I love the showcase for giving me creative sources of inspiration in other mediums and contexts.
It's fun, right? So you can see both the earrings and the poster here, which is really cool. Yeah, lots of very creative and different kind of visualizations. Next up, Shirley, what was something that you noticed that you thought was really interesting this year?
Oh, yeah. So I have to preface by saying that I've been deep in grad school mode for a year and a half, and I have not had the chance to pay attention to anything outside of that. So the first time that I've had the chance to look at anything data visualization related for like the last 2 years was when I got to judge 2 of the categories this year. And so so this is definitely just within those 2 categories, my favorites, which it was such a pleasure to come across Spades from, was it Gabrielle? Yeah, Gabrielle and the pudding. And the reason why I love this one is because it's so visually stunning, and it's like very visually, like it has so much personality. And I know that there was some conversation about how it's a little bit lighter on the data, or maybe the presentation of data. But I find the fact that they took like a survey of like 500 people and then And then they kind of visualize it in a way that I feel like is very, my understanding of it being very culturally appropriate. And the biggest thing for me is that it deviates so much from what we see often in data visualization and data journalism. That's like I feel like we're taught to be like clean and minimal and like make it such that you can see the point right away. And I love that this was like playing with all of those rules and like it was like intentionally breaking a lot of those those kind of like sorry, I just woke up, my brain is but like intentionally breaking those like best like good. I'm gonna stop there because obviously I need more coffee.
And yeah, Spades was a really interesting project that also has an associated card deck. I think someone called out in the chat that you can actually use it to play spades. That you actually can purchase a card deck that has these visualizations to actually play the game of spades with, which gets a little bit meta. Francis, over to you.
Thank you, Amanda. And yeah, I agree. I agree with Shirley. I went to see Gabrielle after to tell her what an impactful project she had. It was very impressive. And that relates also to my choice, which is Life Under Curfew. It's on the one that won the gold in Unusual. And I'm also partial, like Amy, to the Unusual category. To me, it's like the top prize of the night, you know, because it's so creative always. It's a data visualization specialist prize also because and this one yet is so accessible. I think it has it all, you know, because it has the data collection first. It even has like this weird visualization, which is a parallel coordinates, you know, and this is often used in research and it's kind of advanced, you know, it's not one of those bar and line charts, and yet it is also very accessible at the same time. So they really play at the two extremes there. I love how they have collected the data and reflected it to the community. And this is something that I took from reading Living in Data by Thorpe, was published, I think, in the beginning of this year. And it really made me reflect on the fact that when you visualize data, the people who are visualized, you know, it reflects on them. You know, it has an impact on them. And I think that this project was very well built for this. It was not like talking to a third party about this group. It was reflecting to the same group. And of course, there is the interactive, the scrolly telling that accompanies it. Anyway, it has it all for me. I was very, very impressed by this. And it has a good cause, of course. So well done.
Well, and that seems like a great handoff up to Evelina, who was part of that team with Data for Change, who worked on that project. What struck you this year, Evelina?
So my example is much less unusual, I think. It's called Why Did the Kursk, I think he pronounced it, sink. It was a submarine that sank, and there's a whole book that has a sort of alternative story or what's the reason behind it. And the team at Storyworks, they visualize it in a way that I think is quite simple and minimalistic, but also very stunning at the same time. Now, as you scroll, there will be a map that appears soon, and I think the transition is just stunning because when we do scrolly telling kind of pieces, it's kind of hard to make sure that there's a bit of variety and it doesn't look too journalistic and too samey. So I think they did it nicely. Although the list of projects that I really liked that I had never seen before is much, much longer than just this one. So do click on the link that Amanda shared earlier to explore the rest of them.
Absolutely. So as we go ahead and we look at all of those different works, I mean, you look across these different kinds of visualizations and you see everything from a scrolly telling piece to something that was an actual interactive physical installation in Kenya for the Data for Change example. And I'm curious if folks have thoughts from the perspective maybe of the winners from this year first. What does kind of the IIB Awards mean for us as a data visualization community? Why should we even have awards when comparing these projects can create such an impossible task for judges to pick any one winner or 3 winners or 10 shortlistees? Shirley, do you want to pick up there?
Yeah, thank you. So I've been thinking about this a lot. actually more in the context of as a judge. I've had the opportunity to judge a few different awards, and I think that Information is Beautiful Awards, to me personally, is very special because it is perhaps the only award, certainly the only award now. RIP a lot of the other awards because of the pandemic, but it's probably one of the only awards that really celebrates the kind of work that I do, which is it's not data journalism. Like for data journalism, I think there's a lot of different awards. Like Malafiege used to be a big one. I think the Society for News Design, I think, is another one. But I feel like I fall more into like perhaps more in the unusual category, or so I feel like IIB is like the one that to me celebrates everything that I really care about in the work I do. And so that's why I love when it comes around, and I celebrate when it comes around, and I'm excited to see their showcase when it comes around. I've heard people talk about how they've gotten opportunities from the entry showcase, from winning it. But as a judge, I think a lot about if this is what represents our community, then what is it that we're trying to highlight as like knowing that like our judgments will be will be subjective, that there's always really great entries like on every part of the list, but if we are to judge and promote the ones that win the gold and the silver and the bronze, what is it that we want as like the reflection of where our community is presently and where our community will go towards in the future? And so that's what I think about a lot.
Francis?
Yes, I agree with Shirley. And one thing that I love about the awards is how it surfaces a lot of work that I haven't seen from like, it attracts a lot of people. Of course, I follow some of the communities, and be it on the DVS Slack or Twitter or these kind of things, but it's such a great discovery. And I love also the historical aspect of it, that you can go like, what was it in 2012, for instance? What was the level of work? What was like popular at the time, etc.? And so you create this reference point in a way. So I love this about it. And I want to thank the DVS, of course, for restarting those awards, because the community was a bit lost as well. And we were asking, what are those awards? What happened to them? And there was no news for a while. And I know that a bit like Shirley, for our work, it's not clear exactly where to apply. We have never applied for an award before because we couldn't quite find it. We're not really in data journalism, or maybe we are, but we haven't applied or something. And so for that kind of work, I think it opens doors to a lot of projects that are not necessarily covered elsewhere. And I would say also that, this is, at the same time, it's one of many awards. I don't want the Information is Beautiful Awards to carry the weight of the whole community, to be like the one thing how you can get validation. There are many other ways. So for me, it's like I always see it in context of like, okay, well, you win this one, but maybe someone else is going to win elsewhere. There are a lot of competitions. It can be competitions like the Tableau competitions, the RunViz and these kind of things, where you can have validation elsewhere. So I'm saying this to relieve a bit the DVS also from having this kind of responsibility of saying this is what is done in the world in data at the moment. It's just it's one of them. And I know it's very validating for us and also the external clients, like the clients who are not part of the community, like it sends a signal like, interesting, they get recognition in there. So thanks a lot.
It's such an interesting kind of space to look at in terms of what it means for the history too. You pointed out the history of the awards and what that is. And like the winner for this year's Test of Time Award was actually also a gold winner back in 2015 in terms of D3. So I think we can look at ways in which some of these things get resurfaced in terms of being accessible to people who might discover them through the library of awards and through the showcase, and that we can celebrate in different ways and amplify. Evelina, thoughts from you on the role of awards in this kind of space? And you bring a kind of unique perspective working with people who maybe work in communities that don't have an established data visualization hub or community, that this might be a bit different for them.
Oh, for sure. And maybe not even don't necessarily know what data visualization is per se. So the event that I helped organize in Nairobi, I don't even think we said to the community that was data visualization as such, except for those who had done a fellowship with Data for Change, but it was more around bringing data back to them in a way that was the most adapted, because in data we always talk about audience first, and what's the best way to create the project. So I think on top of what Shirley and Francis already said, there's the validation for the organization, and I think and I hope that for some of the winners that are maybe smaller, like the Social Justice Center, that are not the New York Times and the Washington Post, they hopefully it helps them get a bit of recognition and more grants. And even the fact that the gold award is, I think, $1,000, something like that. For a community in Nairobi, that's not nothing. For the New York Times, it probably is, but for them, it's definitely a nice bonus. So there's that additional side of it, I think.
Yes.
Is the
Do you think maybe this from, I think hearing from other folks who are from those communities is really powerful. If we might try pulling up the video that was the acceptance video, if people would be okay with that, from the folks in Kenya who won that award.
With Anthony.
Yeah, Anthony. I was like my name, but I'm forgetting the name, so
Anthony.
add that in there. But I think it's great to kind of see the ways in which people feel impacted and kind of reflect on that from a space that maybe might be outside of our normal data visualization bubble. So let me go ahead and pull that up for us, and we can give it a watch. And someone wants to keep me honest on sound is always a fun game to play with videos playing within a computer. So let's give this a try.
Greetings, I am Anthony Adol. When COVID-19 hit Kenya in the spring of 2020, among the hardest hits were those living in informal settlements like Ndoro. Strict curfews and increased police brutality led to arbitrary arrests and killings, traumatizing and severely impacting the lives of its residents. To document the human rights violations taking place in the informal settlements of Nairobi, our organization, the Social Justice Center's Working Group, conducted a survey between 15th and 6th May of 2020. On the 19th of November 2021, I and my colleague Stephen Happy, and in collaboration with Data for Change, hosted a community event where we created and installed 3 participatory data visualization murals around the following themes. The first one was the results of the COVID-19 survey. And the second one was love for the community, capturing positive interactions that show how community came together during this time. And the last one was collecting new data about the residents and how they felt about their neighborhoods, capturing the level of trust in the police and the feeling of safety in the community. The new and innovative way of representing and working with data was fun. Members of the communities from where we work do not like reading long and sometimes boring reports. The project helped us to overcome this challenge, and the community members were left yearning for more of such events. Working with data does not have to be boring. This award is important to us because it is an encouragement that our work is relevant, impactful, noticeable, and innovative. This award will inspire more young people in the social justice movement to continue working with data and running data-driven campaigns. And it is with great pleasure and honor that we do accept this award. Thank you.
So I know we didn't get the full experience of seeing all of the video components there of all the really cool things. We'll pull up a link to where to find that on the live stream that you can watch. But I think the reflection on data can be fun is a really interesting one. And Amy flagged that in her kind of celebration of the unusual awards. Amy, you've been kind of part of the IIB work for a while, and you were part of some of the early DVS conversations about bringing IIB back or bringing an awards program back of some sort and creating one. Do we need one? Can you share some of your thoughts from that perspective and from that take?
Sure. So I originally started submitting when I was a student because it was free. And so sort of why not? And I like that DVS has maintained the fact that it's free for students to submit. I think that's one of the sort of most important ways to highlight work is that student work component. I started submitting student work, and then I have submitted personal projects. One of the awards that I won was for doing data visualization with Play-Doh, which I didn't feel like was really a valid thing. It was just something I was doing and was like, why not? Let's do this. but it was something fun, and it was really validating. And I've seen other people do that and use Play-Doh as a form for making data viz. I've seen teachers do it as a way to get their students engaged with data visualization, students of all ages, including like PhD students. And so I think that's, there are things that can be fun and unusual mediums, and it can spark and inspire other work too. I think Play-Doh is a great medium because it's not precise. It takes a little bit of the precision out of it. And a lot of people say, I can't draw. And so this is a way that you don't have to draw. But I think it's also important to have that student work component, and to have a way to recognize them. One of my students was shortlisted this year, and it was great to see her work alongside places like Reuters. So you see all different kinds of work highlighted.
Yeah. As we think about what that looks like, I think the kind of uniqueness and celebrating uniqueness, Francis, you won a really interesting award that you won the first ever business analytics category award for something that was, we'll just say, some folks were surprised to see not a dashboard. Maybe we can get hashtag not a dashboard trending, but not a dashboard winning for business analytics in terms of what that looks like. Do you want to share a bit? I'll pull it up on the screen about the work that your team did. And I'll point folks towards the lightning talks that we shared are going to be going live this week. So I hope folks will check out Francis's lightning talk when it goes live. But let's go ahead, and I'm going to pull up your video or your view, and would love to hear you share a bit about this work and why you entered it in the business analytics category.
Well, of course, we entered it in business analytics because it is business analytics. It's our projects. We're a company, and this shows what we worked on, what our products, on what themes, during which period. So if you really read it, you see, okay, they've done a presentation on diversity and inclusion between May and August 2021, for instance. You can see this. So it is, the Information is Beautiful Awards are organized by topic, and the topic here is business analytics, in fact. But we did not really develop this as a dashboard for us to look at our year. It was more of a greetings card, actually, for the start of 2022 to say, we hope you had a good year. This is ours. We wish you a good happy 2022 as well. And so it was definitely more of an art project for us. And it is not in line at all with what we do usually. At Voila, we are very much about clarity, and we're trying to convey the insights both in an engaging way, but also very clearly. And this one here was not meant for this. It was meant to be visually engaging. And so maybe a bit of curiosity, elicit a bit of curiosity in our audience. And I would say that one of the main inspirations for this was Dear Data, of course. And when you look at the work of Stephanie Posavic and Georgia Lupi, it's full of those gems in it and Easter eggs, and you follow it and you say, oh, she visited her grandmother on that day, and that's when she ate a homemade cookie, and it's just fun to discover stuff like this. It never ends, it's like a jar of candies where you discover stuff. And this was the approach that we had, and we hope that some clients would be like, wait a minute, I work on diversity and inclusion with them, so I'm looking for this shape here. Where is it? Oh, that's us, for instance, And the larger, I would say that the message of this visualization was not so much in the graph itself, it was the legend. It's products and themes here. This is what we wanted to convey. We wanted to convey to our existing clients, to our networks, to our friends. This is what we do. This is the range of products that we have. This is the themes that we care about. So then representing them was just layer on the cake, of course, and icing on the cake, and bringing a bit of attention to it. So this is the history. This is where we're preparing the next one as we speak, of course, to be released in January.
All right. So our first ever winner for business analytics. What does everyone think? Simran's got big applause here. Simran, your thoughts?
I think it's great. I mean, I saw some of those Twitter threads going on, and I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on it, but I think I'm a bit biased in being on the organizing committee, so I'd love to hear from other people.
When I saw that conversation on Twitter, I wondered if the mere fact that it sparked such a passionate discussion is already a good thing, because it nourishes the community and everyone has to sort of think about it. Okay, so do I agree with Francis or do I agree with those who say this is not business analytics? And then it kind of helps you take a step back and form opinions and analyze. So that's probably a good thing in itself.
I mean, it's definitely a good thing for us. We're here today thanks to this conversation as well. You know, it brought more attention to the work. But I think it's good that it's not us who chose the gold medal, you know, it's the jury who chose it, you know. And so we did this before the awards even existed, you know. It was not like created for competition or anything. We just had such a positive reaction to it that when the awards opened, we thought like, okay, we try to fit this somewhere in there. And my hope is that, you know, for people who say, wow, this is not what I expected, well, what can I learn from it? You know, it's still business analytics. So what is strong about this? It doesn't have to be the end all of what business analytics is and how it is presented. You know, it's one take on it. It's the same thing when there's an Oscar for the best movie. It doesn't mean every movie has to follow this model. And so on Twitter, I was suggesting stuff like, I see a lot of dashboards that have a hard time following the visual guidelines of a company, you know, that the branding, so you don't feel that you're part of it. And this actually, it was an experience for us to force our own branding on ourselves, because it only has like black, white, gray, and yellow. And we had all those products to present and all those themes at the same time. And at first we played with a lot of colors and we said, well, this is not us. Like, we're trying to represent our work with this. And so we said, okay, back to the drawing board. We just have black, white, gray, and yellow. How can we make this work? And I think like sometimes, you know, we can get just carried away and not keep those constraints all the way back, like we did at first until we backed up. So this is just an example of course, you cannot, I would, as an owner of the company, I would never rely on this to see where our projects are going, but still, there's maybe something to be learned. So that's what I hope would be the reaction, saying, I cannot do exactly this for my work, but maybe I can learn something from this. And that's how I took it.
Shirley?
Yeah, I wanted to say, first of all, that it's like, I love the meta-ness of it. I love when like we create data visualizations for like to represent data visualization projects. And I love what you did. And I love all of the attention to detail you pay in there. And I think all of the discussion also, to me, it reminds me of like, Francis, you said earlier that like DVS and IIB doesn't have to hold the responsibility of like representing the whole community. And it is something that I've also been thinking a lot about since the judging and the award ceremony of like, I think part of all of the conversation that's going on of people being confused about why this one got shortlisted or why this one won an award is because I think for all of us, information is beautiful, represents different things. For me, when I think about the award, I think about data visualization and things that are data heavy and like things that represent data well. But I've also talked to friends where IIB Awards means like infographics and like things with like beautiful illustrations and using that to tell information. And like the thing that happened here is like, for some people, business analytics means dashboards. And then like for Francis, you're like, this is business analytics. It is analyzing our business, which is very true. And I think that's something maybe we'll touch on later in the conversation about like part of this is that like, and I think the part of the subjectivity and a little bit of the trouble we had with the judging was that there's like no clear definition of what information is beautiful awards is awarding. And I think that's both beautiful. Like I kind of really love it because it like creates unexpectedness and creates these conversations. But also I think it would be helpful to have a little bit more clarity on that.
It's interesting because this was the year we introduced a more structured rubric to how to assess and judge things. So trying to create more clarity for the judges on kind of how to assess different visualizations and do the scoring. And that's really helpful. I think the broader kind of meta question you're asking for us as a community, Shirley, is a really good one in terms of what it means to different people. And I would go back to like the business analytics category got added. And this is kind of what some of the other shortlistees looked like. So there were some that were more dashboardy and some that were more kind of visual and engaging and interesting from an artistic perspective. We added business analytics because of the historical criticism that there's nowhere that prioritizes and celebrates functional data visualization. And functionality was one of the criteria on the matrix itself. And so it's an interesting question because you say like it doesn't have to be everything to everyone, but also how can we be both inclusive of people who develop and design very kind of functional, maybe less fun visualizations, and also kind of make sure that we're celebrating great design. We want people to look at these examples and say, this is inspiring for me in terms of my work and my practice. And I would challenge us, I would kind of push back and be curious what folks' thoughts are on, we don't want to exclude the entire business intelligence community either in how we celebrate great information design.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up the finalists there or the shortlisted projects, because Pradeep, who won bronze for this, has a beautiful dashboard. So it's not really excluded. He's one of the winners this year as well. And the gold is not the only way that it's celebrated. There is the three medals, if you will. There is the shortlisting, there is the long listing, and so there is an inclusion as well on this, and his work is both beautiful and functional, and in fact probably more aligned with what Voila does very often in its work. And so we love what he's been doing there, and so I feel that there is a certain inclusion. One thing that I would say also about this is that the let's say the dashboard industry, how can I say, it's not the underdog either. It's a very big industry. It also has it's a very lucrative industry as well, in the field. It's not like data art, which is like the top dog, and they have a lot of their own competitions as well and all. And so I know that here, it feels like, okay, like how can we recognize them more? And it's good. And they won one of the medals as well. But in the larger context of data visualization, it's a huge industry as well.
I think that's a fair question. Other thoughts from folks who worked on kind of the assessment and the startup of this business analytics category? Simran, I'm kind of looking at you in the corner, who had to sit in the back end and help work with me on the judging matrices and everything else. It's tough to make a matrix that like actually effectively celebrates and rewards people for very different kinds of visualizations.
Yeah, and we also had community listening sessions. I think we had 2 to 3 to get feedback, and that was what was expressed, was the desire for further recognition of these fields. And I think back to what Shirley said earlier about how these awards are a reflection of where our field is and where our field is going. And I think projects like this really further that cone of possibilities for the future work. And hopefully maybe there'll be clients that look to create these sort of alternative models of visualization, and maybe we won't refer to them as alternate in the future. And if you look at the category descriptions, dashboards is only one of the things described in business analytics in the descriptions for people to apply or submit to the awards.
So one of the other things that came up in we love looking at data about ourselves. We can actually look at the back end in DVS at all of the scores that came in from all of the judges across all of the works, which is an undertaking for 2023. I think everyone deserves a little bit of a pause. And we wouldn't release those scores publicly from a kind of individual score perspective, but we want to see how well the rubric worked. Was there high amounts of skew kind of high in one way? Was there a lot of grade inflation? Who knows? But one of the other things we heard back from folks looking at kind of who won was there were a lot of scrolly telling pieces that were the big winners this year. And I think back, Shirley, you and Nadi did like the exceptional piece of scrolly telling work with the Guardian's bust out example. I mean, when was that? Years ago?
That was 2017. Oh my God, that's 5 years ago.
And you look at that,
Yeah.
and it's like what a novel form that really was when that kind of won. That I remember encountering that, and I didn't know about the IIB Awards yet. And I was in a Twitter chat with someone. They're like, "You'll see this at the IIBs this year," and I was like, "What are the
Oh.
IIBs?" So it was very interesting because today we saw a lot of people win for the scrollytelling pieces. Besides in the unusual category, the business analytics one got a static piece, but a lot of the shortlisted works were also scrollytelling pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be curious from folks, kind of, how does that reflect us as an industry right now, and how can we celebrate works that take other forms and help us judge them more effectively? Evelina, you worked on one of those kind of novel pieces this year that did win.
Yeah. So one thing that I've been noticing, and I'd be curious to hear if everyone else is kind of noticing the same thing, is that the data viz industry is trying to shift. I say try because it's not always easy, towards more and more data storytelling rather than just data visualization. I see in my clients that they ask for more and more, not only we've just acquired Tableau, can you train us how to do the visualizations, but more of the storytelling, step by step, of course, not this huge scrolling thing right away. But what I'm trying to say is that I feel like the industry is shifting towards more storytelling because we're now pretty much used to the tools. We know how to make simple charts and want to take the next step, and maybe that's what's impacting the frequency or the space, the volume of scrollytelling pieces, because those are usually the ones where you have the space to introduce characters and quotes and nice things like that. I don't know if it's something that you've observed as well. And when I
Amy,
say
I
you, I
see
mean everyone on the panel.
Amy, thoughts from you?
So I want to highlight Made to Measure was the gold winner in the I'm going to confuse my categories. The arts, entertainment, and culture category. And it is very much not a scrollytelling piece. It is very much you have to sit down and listen to it. It's like an hour-long interactive video. And this is, it sort of collects data as you go and then gives you a data visualization at the end and talks about data collection. This was a very unusual format. In the way that you had to sit down with this piece. I was a judge in this category, and like this was not one that you could run through in a few minutes. You really had to spend time with it to assess it. So I think this format is very different and something that you wouldn't see highlighted. Something that I would not sit down for an hour all of the time and go through this, but it was quite interesting
and immersive. Shirley?
I wanted to add that I have slightly strong opinions on this. So I remember when scrollytelling started, like I think I remember seeing the first scrollytelling around like 2014, 2015. And that was a huge deal because that was when like the web and browsers were starting to get good enough to have like smooth animations when you scroll. And like the community went wild, right? Like it was like the first time we had seen it. There was this big debate about like, is scrollytelling the right way to tell a story, or is it steppers? Like steppers that people have to actively click through to ensure their like attention. And obviously we know who won out that debate. And so then, we've seen more and more and more and more scrollies over the years because it is a very effective way to tell stories on the web. Like it is a very easy interaction. Like people, all they have to do is one action, and you get the whole story. And I think that's really great. And I think that's especially helpful in journalism. But it's been 7-8 years since then. And if that was one inflection point in data visualization, let's say let's say on the web, I'm very much looking forward to like, what is the next inflection point? Well, like, what is the next kind of innovation that we have for data visualization and data storytelling? Let's just constrain it to the medium of the web. Like, what is it next that we can do? And that's what that's what I'm hoping for in these awards that we get to discover. And I think that the reason why so many personal just hypotheses. So many scrolly tellings came up in the shortlist. I think it's like one. I think Evelina, you're absolutely right. Is that there's so much more of them. Like it is very exciting, but I think it's also that it's like the easiest to judge. Like to Amy's point, like what one made to measure takes an hour, and like for like so many judges, like this is something we're doing voluntarily, and so like maybe we don't have an hour to sit through. For like Simran went through all 1,000 something long list. Like that is incredible, but that means that like Simran doesn't have like 1,000 hours to like dedicate to each single one, right? And I think there's so many beautiful like interactive pieces where you have to really click, and like I know I missed some in my judging, like where you have to really like dig deep and explore to get the full story and like get the like value of the piece. And so I think like I'm really excited about conversations of like how do you level that playing field? Like how do you level the playing field for entries where like you can't just go through it in a few minutes to understand the full story for a very highly exploratory piece, or like even like a lot of the things in Unusual where like it's an installation in the physical space, and like you can't there's only video documentation of it, and you'll never be able to see it truly from every single angle, because installations, you need to be there. And speaking of installations, that's one of the things that I'm really excited about, as like, you know, maybe we haven't had an inflection point for data visualization on the web because maybe a lot of the technology, we've explored it. So like, what if it's that the next inflection point isn't about the web, but it's about different mediums and exploring data visualization and storytelling in different mediums? And what if it's about like bringing data into like more different parts of our lives instead of just on our phones and devices? What if it's about like having it just surround us in our lives? That is a whole different tangent that I'm just excited about like data visualization in general. But the core thing I wanted to say about that was the scrolly telling part and how it's just easier to judge. And I think that's what might have happened.
Well, and I think that you flag a couple pieces there, and also just kind of innovation and how we display and interact and engage with data. One of the ones that came up in a lot of conversations as well was the one from Christina Schukes, that goes ahead and actually looks at animated sport results. And as you watch this play without scrolling at all, I'm not moving anything on my phone or my laptop. This is just happening. You can see the nuance behind the final score of a game. And I know this popped up for me too in thinking about how interesting this looks for like World Cup games in terms of the current situation that we're in, watching the World Cup progress. But there's a lot of novelty here. There's simplicity, but it's all in one small contained space. So how do we also celebrate really novel and interesting things that are simple in design, but really innovative in terms of how they're visualizing a story? Because I would argue that there's a really clear story here, all in one tiny little contained space, which is incredible. And like designing a 10-minute lightning talk versus a 1-hour presentation, simplicity can be harder sometimes.
Yeah, and actually, I do want to add and acknowledge, I feel like I've benefited really greatly from scrolly telling. And the piece that I won Most Beautiful for, I actually really did not expect it to. And I feel kind of slightly conflicted about it because on one hand, I'm very proud of the work there, and I'm really grateful that it even got shortlisted, that it thank you for acknowledging it as Most Beautiful. But it's a scrolly telling piece, and I was like, I would have loved like seeing some of the more unusual interactions be in the spot. But also I'm very grateful, so very conflicted.
And it's a great piece to explore. We'll put a link to the chat. And I think Marilia, our team member, is helping us with posting stuff to LinkedIn as well. But there's lots there. Someone was speaking up. Evelina, was that you? Or Simran?
It was me. But I also just wanted to add that we also had UX case studies that were submitted this year. We also had research pieces. And we also had series of works. And so how might we reevaluate the judging criteria next year to, to factor in all these different visualizations of information in the most broad of terms?
Well, and I'll shout out from the back end perspective, how do we do all of that in a way that is manageable from a bandwidth perspective, both for a team running the awards, personal bias there. Also, for the judges and the amount of time that our 50 plus judges spent going through and scoring and evaluating all of these different pieces and works, I think it's a really big question. And I'll throw out that one of the things I've talked with some folks about is, could we allow people to submit a unnarrated short video clip that lets you lead me through how you would like for me to experience the visualization, so it's not dependent on where I happen to click. I'm getting the best possible experience without adding a narration that really isn't present. You wouldn't want to have someone win for their great narration of their piece of work. But I think there are things that we can consider in terms of what that looks like. I'm mindful of time, and we are getting close to our hour. And we had a great question actually from Francisco that I think is a high end to land on before we wrap up and talk about all the ways in which, as DVS, we're actively looking to gather feedback and ideas from folks. One of the great parts about this being a really kind of community-led initiative right now is that we want to know how we can keep making this a program that our community feels proud of. And when educators and creators think about where they can go for inspiration, they continue to think about the IIB Awards website and about the showcase and all the work that David McCandless and his team have done to kind of build that foundation that we can build upon. So the great question from Francisco that I loved was, what are you working on that might be in an IIB 2023 contender? Are you working on anything cool or thinking about anything for the next year that you can preview for us that you expect you might be able to submit? Or is it all super secret that you don't want to give away your secret sauce?
If I can, it's impossible to work to the awards. Like, it's like you just like do your best work the whole year, and at the end you look at the categories and you send something. But really to say, like, especially awards are in flux, like we discussed, like, they were transferred this year. Now we're thinking about how to define them. And one thing that I wanted to add about this is that I think the reason why we need to rethink them is mostly because they're young, they're new, but in the end we need to define them, period, and not necessarily to fend off all criticism, because there are always going to be people who say, well, you haven't taken this into consideration, or this or that. Like, it's always going to happen. But the Sundance Festival is not the Oscars, and each of them have their own identity after a few decades, and this is what's going to happen with the Information is Beautiful Awards. It's going to be, yes, this is who we are, and there's going to be certain criticism, obviously, but I think, yeah, and right now I think it's impressive the amount of support actually that there is across the industry. So no, we're not working on anything where we're thinking about the awards. We're just going to see in whatever September, do we have anything we've done during the period.
Anyone want to volunteer a piece of work they might be thinking of?
So I can share one that is. Sorry, I cut you off.
Okay. No, you go. And then, yeah.
So as Francis said, obviously not working towards the awards, but I have a still half secret project. A friend of mine who's a well-known journalist here in France, she's creating a documentary around sharks and the dangers around sharks and why we should save them in the oceans and all that. And she asked for my help a little bit on the storytelling component, and then I was like, obviously we need to add data to it. So we're working towards visualizations and motion infographics in there. So I'm not sure it's going to make it for 2023, but maybe 2024.
I was gonna say I've been thinking about this a lot too. I feel like I've really greatly benefited from the awards. I've been submitting since 2016. I've been really fortunate to have won it in 3 different categories. I've been fortunate enough that like the projects that I have worked with, data sketches, started out as a project that won Gold and Unusual back in 2016 or 2017, and this year it was able to win. And because of that community support, we got the courage to turn it into a book, to approach, like, because of that community support from IIB, and we were able to approach publishers and be like, hey, there is a market, there is a demand. And so it gave us that confidence. And then it's like such a beautiful way to, I feel like, wrap up that part of my life, where then IIB Awards, then like our community then like graced us with exemplary book for that book. In a similar way, from a personal career, some of the works that I get mentioned to me the most are the ones that people will say like, oh, this, I found this inspiring, are the ones that have won IIB awards. And not to get sappy, but I'm just gonna bring a little bit of personal backstory. I worked in Silicon Valley as a software engineer for 4 years full time, and that did a thing to my self-confidence and sense of self-worth that I didn't realize for a really long time, where I had a very low opinion of my work, and I didn't think I did good work. And it was thanks to this community and thanks to this awards that like helped validate. And like 6 years later, I'm like, I do good work. And being able to win most beautiful this year, like it has given me a sense of calm that, like, whereas before I felt like an imposter every time I won something, like, oh, like I don't know why I'm winning this, and a constant need to prove myself. Like this award has given me this calm to be like, oh, I am good at what I do, and I feel like I've gotten so much, and maybe everything I need is a weird word, but like out, like the awards has given me so much, and I now feel like maybe I want to transition into a place where I'm not necessarily submitting all of my work to the awards, and maybe transitioning more into like helping organize and helping, but there will be one category that I will continue. This is finally the answer to the question. There will be one category that I will continue to submit to the awards, and that will be the unusual category. That is such an exciting category to me. And the reason why I'm in graduate school right now is so that I can like learn all of the things that it takes to build interactive installations into the physical world and take those data stories out into the physical world and put on shows that tell whole stories in a room. And how do you document that and present that like both in the physical world but also online? And so I have a few projects and like 1 or 2 shows planned right now that I'm hoping to document and then submit to the awards next year and the year following. So I'm really, really, really excited about that. But yeah. Thank you for letting me.
Surely. I mean, that's a great reflection. I think taps into the other wrap-up question I had for the group. If anyone else wants to share in terms of what these kind of awards and winning awards can mean for you personally and professionally. And it's so incredible to see kind of that arc or hear that arc from you, Shirley, in terms of what that looks like. And it makes me continue to think about how do we create the space for not competing, but really should be in the showcase, because we don't want to miss out on archiving and sharing those kind of amazing things. But that's for another time. Frances, Evelina, did you have thoughts on the awards and what those mean for you?
Yes, I mean, for us, it was the first time that we applied for an award as well. And so it was quite a surprise to have 3 of our projects shortlisted to start with. It was very validating. In fact, we played it real hard on social media because we thought, okay, the shortlisting is probably where we're gonna like have the most recognition for our work. So we developed those visualizations as well to show what it meant to be chosen among more than 1,000 people as well. And so, but when the win came, it really it changed something as well. And you know, I think like the way that we communicate about the awards at Voila is really for an audience outside of the community. It's to say like, look, this community has said this to us, and we talk to our clients, like we talk even to our family. Like the beautiful work that was done on our work, on the star of our work, was really developed mostly by Celia Albano, who's a graphic designer, and she's new to this field. And for her to be understood also amongst her friends, among her family, to say like, this is what I do, and it's recognized. And for our clients also to see, oh, okay, like you do work that is recognized for this. I think like we may be known a bit in the community, but it was very, very validating. It made a big difference. It was also very bonding for us, I think, you know, to say like, yes, we've done this, you know, we're like one of the recognized studios. And I would say in the end that It also comes with responsibilities, as I'm here because there's been discussions about it, and our work has been mostly under the radar and just, collecting a few compliments here and there. But now, it's like, okay, our voice now matters a little more. So we have to think a little more before we speak and own our mistakes a little more publicly as well, because you get more visibility from this. So I feel that, with this visibility comes a responsibility as well. So I would say this is what we take from it.
And back over to our last three to wrap up on the awards and what they mean to you. Simran, Evelina, or Amy, do you want to chime in on that as we wrap up our time today?
Sorry, I'm just really happy they're back. I'm really happy that this is a place that I can, so I teach and so I can point students to be an example of these are the things that are going on in the past year. These are things that are highlighted in these different categories. Look at this variety of projects. And then also something is for students to work towards, you do a lot of work and don't think that it can be public, but this is one way that other people get eyeballs on that work and really using it to highlight students.
Simran?
I graduated from college last year, and during school, I was constantly looking at the showcase to try to teach myself data viz skills and learn about all the different possible expressions of data viz. And I often felt overwhelmed when trying to build my career in data viz because there weren't any clear paths to how to get there and whatever there meant. But I found the awards very validating. It showed the range of ways one could practice data viz and celebrated them all. And so as an early career person, I think it can be a really valuable space for exposure and learning in community. And it brings our individual data viz journeys into a collective space for celebration, creative inspiration, and reflection. So hopefully I'll have the courage to submit next year or sometime in the future. But yeah, just so inspired, and thank you all for being here.
Sure. Evelina, last word to you. What do the awards mean personally, professionally, if at all?
I think, of course, I think it's been probably said. Everything's been probably said, especially I love the beautiful story that Shirley shared on confidence. I think it's a moment of recognition and probably pride for ourselves, for our families. I agree with Francis. My parents were so excited, even though they don't even speak English. They have no idea what it's about. They're just like, oh, an award. Oh my God, how did you do it? So ourselves, our families, and the wider community and our clients is the social proof and just recognition aspect. Because I know a lot of us in the community suffer from the imposter syndrome every once in a while. And as Simran mentioned, we don't necessarily always have certificates and diplomas that say how to do data visualization. So this is one of those ways to prove it, quote unquote.
I love that. And I think it just speaks so much to kind of the ways in which the awards mean different things to different people and the ways in which they can help us really kind of cement what it is we do. My parents still don't totally understand what I do. I build charts. I don't think they understand how much other stuff goes into building the charts. But yeah, hearing all the reflections there, even I think Shirley, kind of your candor and honesty is so appreciated as someone who has won a lot of these awards, that I think you're speaking out as someone in our industry who people look to as a leader and saying, I've felt this kind of imposter syndrome myself. I've been surprised that I've won. I've been surprised I've been shortlisted. I hope people take that to heart in terms of we all feel a little bit of that. I mean, I've never submitted anything for any of these awards, and maybe I should consider doing that next year and being a little bit more personally proactive. And I would say if you're, to wrap up, I know we're a little bit over time. I want to go ahead and point folks towards where they can keep an eye on how to give more feedback and input on the awards, and to keep hearing more about some of the awards, including the long list of different community leaders who were nominated, the different books that were nominated, because there were a lot of exceptional pieces that were not nominated there. And so if you want to find more about that, you can take a look at and watch Nightingale. You'll see that we celebrate a lot of very novel data visualization on Nightingale. But I hope that you'll take some time to go ahead and keep an eye on Nightingale for updates about the various different other categories. Also, keep an eye on your inbox if you're a DVS member. If you're not a DVS member, I hope that you'll take the time to join us and join our newsletter. You'll see some requests for feedback in the form of a survey and some open community listening sessions for folks who aren't so keen to go through and click buttons on a survey to give their input in different formats. Because we can't wait to hear about kind of how we can continue to improve the awards going forward and how we make this into a space that our community can celebrate. So with that, we're a bit over time. I'm very grateful to all of the folks who joined us today. Thank you, Evelina, Simran, Shirley, Francis, and Amy, for bringing all of your perspectives. I hope this can be an ongoing conversation for our community. And with that, I'm wishing everyone a wonderful end to their 2022. I hope you all get some time offline, maybe doing some physical data visualization with Play-Doh if you've been inspired to play in that direction, and enjoy the rest of the year. And we'll see you for more of these kind of conversations in January about the awards. There's also another there's one more DVS Fireside Chat coming up later this week on DataViz collaboration. So keep an eye on that from the Data Visualization Society. We'll go ahead and we'll wrap up. We'll sign off. We'll wave our farewells and goodbyes, and have a wonderful rest of your year. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.